Of the Lemoore City Council Chambers, 429 C Street. Today is June 15th, 2022. This is a special meeting agenda. Please silence all electronic devices as a courtesy to those in attendance. So we're going to go ahead and stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Nathan, do you want to do invocation even though it's not on here? We'll do a short invocation. Ready, salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, you.
Okay. Bow your heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We ask that you be with us as we make decisions tonight for our community. And Lord, we just ask that you be with us tonight. Keep this community safe. Bless our first responders. And we thank you for all our blessings here in Lemoore. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you. So go ahead and do roll call.
Councilmember Orth,
Here.
Councilmember Gornick,
Here.
Councilmember Cheney,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Matthews,
Here.
Mayor Lyons.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so first on the thing is our 5:30 special session, which is going to be a closed session. This item has been set aside for the city council to meet in a closed session to discuss matters pursuant to government code section 54956.9B4. The city attorney will provide an oral report regarding the closed session at the beginning of the next regular city council meeting. 1, Government Code Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, one case. And with that, we are in closed session. Please silence all electronic devices as a courtesy to those in attendance. Thank you very much. So we just adjourned out of closed session.
And there's nothing to report, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. And that's going to take us into our consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are placed on the consent calendar. They will be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless a council member or a member of the public requests individual consideration. 1-1, resolution of 2022-25 authorizing continued use of remote teleconferencing provisions, AB 361. 1-2, approval of resolution 2022-26 adopting a list of projects for the fiscal year 2022-2023 funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. 1-3, approval acceptance of donations for the fiscal year of 21 to 22. 1-4, approval of minutes, regular meeting, June 7th, 2022. 1-5, approval of minutes, special meeting, June 9th, 2022. So would any member of the council like to pull any of these 5 items? Seeing none, go ahead and open it to the public. Would any of the public in the audience like to pull anything? Seeing none. Marissa, do you have anybody? No, nobody. Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to council. So now I'm looking for a motion to approve consent calendar.
I'll make the motion to
Okay.
approve.
Mrs. Matthews, and I know I need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Orth. Ms. Matthews, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Orth,
Yes.
Mr. Gornick,
Yes.
Mr. Cheney?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it. So that's going to take us to new business. 2-1. Report, recommendation, and action, resolution 2022-23. The intention to levy and collect the annual assessments with landscaping and lighting maintenance district number 1 LLMD zones 1 through 13. And resolution 2022-24. Intention to levy and collect the annual assessments within public facilities maintenance district number 1 PFMD zones 1 through 10. Young man, how are you?
Good. How are you, council?
Good. We're good. They're all good too.
So this is just an intent for a public hearing, and it's the intention to levy and collect the annual assessments for the LLMD districts, as you stated, 1 through 13, the PFMD, the public facility maintenance districts, number 1 through 10. This is something we go through every year to the intention to levy for those districts. We have to do this before, I can't remember the specific date in August, but it's to make sure it gets put onto the property tax. Otherwise, we miss our deadline and we get no money to fund those districts. Was there any questions regarding this? Intention?
Yeah, so I noticed in a particular along Silverado Avenue, we've removed a lot of trees, a lot of pine trees there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what district that is. I don't know if that's in 3 or if that's,
I'll find it.
well, the point of my question is, so we removed all that stuff. And
the
it
base.
appears as though
Down the
when we
base.
remove stuff, we don't do anything with the lane. after.
Frank, down at the base.
Down the base, right here.
Oh, okay.
There you go. You're on now. Oh, you turned it off.
Okay.
There you are.
You're back on.
So do we have any plans for, Replacing that, or we
Nathan,
just
are
gonna
you
leave
pulling
it
up the
hard rock?
district?
I'm looking at it.
I mean, that's the question I get from the residents there is, okay, you took everything out. What are you gonna do with the money you're collecting now? What are you gonna do?
So for most of the LLMDs, 1 through 13, apart from maybe 2 of them, most of them are negative, which you will see next week. So next meeting. So we are getting money for them. But it is barely to maintain what we can do now for all of those LLMDs. So one response that I would recommend is that moving them into a PFMD and voting on that, the citizens of those districts would be very beneficial to them. Would be my recommendation on that.
And so if we did something like that, would it be on par with all the rest of the districts?
So
If we took them all off the landscape lighting districts and put them on the what do you call it?
the public facilities maintenance districts, it would be more beneficial. Granted, their rates would go up, but it would allow us to adjust their rates based on the actual cost to maintain. For example, many of the LLMD districts, we can't afford to run their water more than 4 months out of the year. And so it would allow us to adjust their rates so that we can run water all year long to keep their grass green, to keep things in, to be able to maintain their sprinkler repairs, to maintain trees, to pull trees out, put new trees in, fix their sidewalks when the tree roots bring it up. As of now, most of those LMDs can't afford that. So if it's in a smaller LMD that doesn't have the funds, when we remove a tree, we don't have the funds to put a tree back.
So, so Nathan, is that something that we could take a look at a future meeting, at a study session to kind of compare and contrast if we went for?
Yes, but to answer your first question, so there's 2 zones over there. One's an LLMD. So the LLMD covers from Christine Lane all the way to the freeway. And it stops at Acacia to the east of Acacia, and then everything north of Silverado is an LLMD, and that is a district that doesn't have money to replace landscape. If you stay to the south side of the north side of Silverado, after Acacia, everything on that north side isn't a PFMD, so there would be money if we needed to replant that. And it would be in the assessment. And I do believe some of the zones have some capital dollars in there to do some improvements that had the money.
Yeah. But you see my
Yeah.
point. We
Yeah.
start tearing things out and then we never put anything back in.
Yep.
You know,
And I can take a look, if you would like me to, as the process to get them switched over. I know in the past that I was told that the process is that they have to, a petition has to be done by that district, and then they have to vote to increase their tax rate or to transfer from an LMD to a PFMD. And many times that's been rejected in the past when we've tried to convert an LMD to a PFMD.
Yeah, well, we'd also like to know what the cost differential is. Obviously, it's going to be paid more, but
And you can kind of take a look at that. We can go over the engineer's report with that, and I can show you the different sizes of like comparable LMDs to the comparable PFMDs and what the cost differences are of those. Some of them are, the PFMDs are going to be significantly higher. Just an example, many of the LMDs are under $100 per resident, whereas the PFMDs are the lowest one is $350.
So that's annually.
And that is an annual, yes,
Annual.
annually.
Right.
So it is It's a bigger jump for a lot of these residents.
Yeah.
But that would be their option if they wanted to maintain at a higher level.
And so on that vote, would we need 50% or we need to do 2/3?
No, it's basically, on that one, it's based off the property of the parcels. So it's, the more your property is worth, the more weight you gain. But I think the way they level it out, you have to have 50 plus one to pass it.
That's right.
Yes, and the real difference between the LLMDs that we have, with the exception of zone 8, that one we went out, I think in 16, and did a reassessment on it, and we were able to get the vote passed in that zone. And that's the only LLMD that has an annual inflator built into it of the index. So if the engineer's report says that, yeah, we need more money to maintain that district, that LLMD can raise that levy by no more than the cost of inflation, the CPI index that they use. And we have to justify it via this report. That's the only LLMD like that. Every other LLMD that was set up in the city had 0 multipliers on them, or that they didn't keep up with the cost of inflation. So our biggest zone, and I mentioned it, zone 1, which is the first zone they built, and it's our largest zone, has the most to take care of. They've been maxed out since the 90s, and they've had at least 6 failed attempts to raise their levy to provide for better service. So the PFMDs, though, were set up, in my mind, properly, and they include the utilities, the lighting, the landscape, but they also include curb, gutter, street repairs. So those people in PFMDs will always have nicer landscape, nicer roads, and there's an automatic inflator built in, so we don't have to keep going back to the voters.
Right.
So that's why the PFMDs look a lot nicer than the LMDs.
I was going to mention that as well, that one of the biggest reasons that the cost difference is so high, like I stated, the lowest one on the PFDs is 350, is due to the building of the reserves for street repair.
Okay, thanks. So basically, a property owner would have 2 options or 3 options: stay the same, get an escalator built into the current LLMD, or go to
Or they could, if we tried to, we could take them to a PFMD.
we need to talk a little bit about that, because some of the property owners may not know they could have an option there. In other words, if you want to stay the same, these are the benefits of going to these one or 2 other ones. I know, no. More information we give them, maybe the better informed they'll be.
Yeah, so when we went after the last assessment increases, we did have meetings, community meetings, like out in the parks in their neighborhoods, and we had people come in and we did talk to people. But yeah, it's something we can definitely look at, but to kind of give council an idea, though, like zone 1 really only has, I want to say, like $90,000 to pay for that whole upkeep for the year. Well, we chew up probably half of that just in utilities. So that leaves 40,000 for landscape maintenance and to repair things. And it's just not enough money. So if we want to run another 218 hearing, I believe the fee we have to pay to run that hearing for that district is about $10,000. So that year, then, if we go to levy it again, that would really only leave us like $30,000 to maintain their area, because we usually pay for those levies out of the thing. So I agree with you. We absolutely need to find a solution. And I think part of it is we got to do a better job getting out there and getting the word out before the paperwork goes out to the people. So
Yeah, and so that they also can see how it affects their property values too. When you're turning into a subdivision where there's just bare dirt on each side, and then 2 blocks down the way, there's a nice green approach to it.
Our engineer recommended finding some sort of door-to-door campaign. And that seems to be the only thing that he's recommended that has worked in other cities, is something door-to-door. Because many of the residents in the voting areas don't attend other meetings, and they see a tax increase and they say no.
Yeah.
So getting the information out there through a door-to-door campaign is what he says is the most effective way.
Good, okay, thank you.
Was there any other questions, council?
seeing none, open to the public. Marissa, you have anything? Nope. Okay, bring it back to council. So The proposed motion is that we're looking to approve the engineer's report and adopt resolution number 2022-23 and resolution number 2022-24.
And set the public hearing on July 20th, and that should say 2022.
There's a typo on the staff report. It should be July 5th of 2022.
Okay, so that is the proposed motion. Would anybody like to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll move. to
Okay,
Accept that.
Mr. Gornick made a motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
And Mrs. Matthews made a second. So Mr. Gornick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Orth,
Aye.
Mr. Cheney?
Yeah.
I'll vote yes as well. Yeses have it. Thank you. So that takes us to 2-2. Report recommendation and action, resolution 2022-27, adopting the budget for fiscal year July 1, 22 to June 30th of 23, providing for the appropriate expenditure of all sums set forth in said budget, providing for all the transfers and additional appropriations, and repealing all resolutions and parts of resolutions in conflict herewith. Mrs. Spear.
Good evening.
Before we, can I ask one more question about this? So every new subdivision that comes through planning commission through us is a PFMD.
Yes.
Yes, everything we do now is all PFMD.
Okay.
The only time we'll do LLMD is if it's like phase 3 of a project of, like phase 3, the last phase and it's part of it, then we set them up on the LLMD and they just follow suit what's already there.
So we do the same thing with, let's say, our business park or anything like that. We use a PFMD. And those are,
No, the PFMDs are always set up with the contractors and their building subdivisions. So out in our industrial park, the property owners are responsible for their own upkeep. You can create districts and facilities and such. So right now, like we have an application or the planning commission the other night. Well, wait, I'm off topic on that. I can't talk. about it.
Yeah.
Right. So Councilmember Gornick did have follow-up questions. I'm not so concerned as this item is coming back to council on July 5th. So the public will have an opportunity to participate in the discussion further. So you can answer his question.
Okay, so like we do have the in the South Industrial Park, we have those sections of warehouses for rent. Those are going through an ownership change. And then just north of there is the base camp Wasona Cannabis. So they went last night to the planning commission or the other night to planning commission and got it approved for making that a private road in a private area. They are going to be part of they have to have funds available and set aside to maintain the area as a result of them going private. So that'll be our first real business park where they have to have like a homeowners association, so to speak, to reserve the funds to maintain the area. And that'll be,
so we have a fee in mind or a number in mind in order to do that, or are we relying on them to do that?
no, that's on the owners. The owners have to establish what that fee looks like and what they're going to put into it. The
Yeah.
city doesn't dictate. We just say they have to have a homeowner association. So they'll have to come up and get something that's acceptable before we will go ahead and let them permit and do their things out
So
there.
you have a number in mind in terms of what that is?
Not at this point, I don't, because I haven't seen the full build out of the site. So we don't know what all the landscaping requirements are going to be.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Right now, we don't know. And like for us, for the LLMDs and PFMDs, we have to do the engineered study to justify the cost. I'd have to get back to you on how we do that and when it's up to the private entity
Yeah,
that
'cause that
has a
could start
requirement to
looking
maintain.
pretty tacky if we didn't do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the city attorney just mentioned we'll bring that back as part of the workshop.
Great, thank you. Sorry.
Here we go, 2-2.
No apologies necessary. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So I'm here this evening seeking your approval for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023. I'm sure all of you remember being here for hours last Thursday, going over all of the specifics of the budget. I do not have a presentation this evening. Anybody who's watching who did not see the presentation, it is available on our website. Feel free to go back and watch it. Very few things have changed. So before I ask for your approval, I just want to point out a few very simple things. Council asked for several changes on Thursday. They asked to increase the employees home buyer program by 50,000 for a total of 100,000. You all asked for another $50,000 for the sidewalk repair program. That's a capital improvement project. And you asked for an additional 25,000 as an expenditure for a potential like PR marketing, kind of help get the message out for city programs and services. So that's been added. So it was a total add of approximately $125,000. But last week when I brought this to you, it was like 95% of the way done. So one of the things that I do very last is make sure that our salary and benefits are allocated correctly. So from the time that we printed the packet that I presented to you last Thursday, we've had some retirements and we've had some resignations. And so what happens with that is we have to assume how we're going to backfill that position. Most of the time, that is with the position that makes less money per hour than the person that retired or resigned. And it also creates a reallocation of PERS and risk management costs. The reason I tell you this is that if you look on Schedule 3, and I'm sorry, again, no page numbers, and Councilmember Orth, I apologize, it's still real tiny. So we'll change that before we put it on the website. Last week when I was here, we had a proposed annual deficit of about 2.57 million. It's now 2.55. So it's actually decreased by $18,000. The reason for that is because the $125,000 that council asked me to add was offset by about $143,000 change in allocations for salary and benefits. So we're actually better off today, marginally, than last Thursday. And so that's the one thing I wanted to point out to you. So fund balances might have changed minimally in the other categories as well that were affected by personnel, again, for risk management and PERS allocations, but nothing worth noting specifically. So does council have any questions for me about this budget before I ask you to bless it? Yes, sir.
I remember us having a conversation.
Very bottom,
60.
still off. That's on,
There we go.
the red light.
Oh, gotcha. I remember us having a conversation about sidewalks, but we also talked about downtown. About sidewalks and repairing some of the tree areas.
Yeah, those are projects that are in early stages of engineering and stuff. So those projects, they'll be in planning phase for a while. And I still got to get my update from Frank on where he's at on the downtown renovation. That'll be a future capital project coming out.
But so, I mean, I guess my other question is, if are we doing it, or do we have an architect come in and take a look at what we need to do to scape that differently? Because I know we talked about drainage and we talked about some other stuff that.
Yeah, that project, we would give that probably we'd either go out to bid for an engineering on that, or we'd have the city engineers QK do the preliminary work on that. And then we'd bring it back to council for approvals. And then once we get all the bid packages, then we'd go ahead and execute. But right now, when I remember the capital list, I mean, that project's still out of ways.
Yeah, I know, but we could say that every year.
Yeah. But if a business owner wants to fix their sidewalks, they're eligible to submit funds on the sidewalk repair program as well.
Do they
And
know
some of
that?
them did take advantage of it the last time around. So it's not just for it's for anybody that has a Lemoore address is within the city limits is eligible to put in for those funds, including our downtown businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council or members of the public?
Okay, let's open it to public.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just did the mayor's job. I
It's
apologize.
okay. Marissa, do you have anything? No? All right. So back to council it goes, and we're looking for a motion to approve operating budget for fiscal year 2022-23 and adopt resolution 2022-27.
Motion.
Second,
Mr. Orth and Mr. Gornick. Mr. Orth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Gornick,
yes.
Mr. Cheney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Ayes have it. So that is going to take us to 2-3. Report recommendation and action, amendment of the city's salary schedule. Oh, you're still there, Ms. Spear. Okay.
I'll be with you for the remainder of the evening.
Yeah.
Okay, so item 2-3 is in conjunction with the budget. So now that you have approved the budget for fiscal year 22-23, as presented to you last Thursday, we're requesting the reclassification of 2 existing positions. And those 2 positions need to be placed on the salary schedule. So you will see in your packet that you have a revised salary schedule that shows the proposed salary range for the 2 positions. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. And just so that you are aware, that salary range is consistent with other manager positions that are in the city based on previous studies that were done. So we are requesting that both of them as managers be placed at a range 112. And as you can see here, that is a salary of approximately 83,000 to 106,000 on the top end.
Does
And
coun-
these expenditures were included in the budget you just adopted, just
Yeah.
for clarification.
So does council have any questions for this particular item? Seeing none, I'm going to open it to public, or if Michelle wants to open it public, she can. No?
Any questions from the public?
Thank you, Michelle. Nothing. So back to council it goes. We're looking to have a motion to approve the amendment of the city salary schedule to include salaries for the IT manager and community services manager positions.
Motion to accept 2-3.
That's the easier way, Mr. Orth. Second,
Aye.
Mr. Gornick. So Mr. Orth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Gornick,
Aye.
Mr. Cheney,
Aye.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Yes, I vote yes as well. So 2-4, report recommendation and action, the contract for financial consulting services with Price Page and Company for fiscal year 22 to 23. Ms. Spear, one more time.
So this was also included in the budget that you just adopted for fiscal year 23. These are the consultants that we have had with us since I believe the 2019 budget. They assist us with all of our year-end close, preparations of our financial statements, and any general consulting that we need for best practices. And they help consult us with relation to general accounting practices or the GASB rules that are coming out. And they also serve as the liaison between the city and our auditors each year to make sure that the audit goes smooth. So this is not a new contract. We just renew it every year, and this is part of the budget. And this year's contract estimate is approximately 116,000. That includes some contingency because currently they are serving to assist in filling some vacancies for us temporarily because they hold the certifications and the knowledge to do so while we are recruiting for some vacant positions that were a result of some resignations.
Okay. Any questions from council? Looks like not.
Any
Michelle?
questions from the public?
Thank you, Michelle. No? Okay, Michelle, bring it back to council.
I'd like to bring it back to council.
So council, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agreement with Price Page and Company for Financial Consulting Services and authorize the city manager or designate to execute contract, otherwise known as 2-4.
I will motion what you said.
Mrs. Matthews, thank you
Sorry, I
for the
forgot to turn on
motion.
my mic.
Oh, okay. So that was Ms. Matthews
I'll second it.
and Mr. Orth. Okay, Ms. Matthews, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Orth,
Yes.
Mr. Gornick,
Aye.
Mr. Cheney.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Ayes have it. So that's going to take us to adjournment. And can we do brief city council reports? I think we can. So yeah.
Can I make a brief statement?
Oh, sure. Go for
I'm so
it.
sorry. I'm normally one that wants to get out of here, but I just wanted to thank council sincerely for being part of this process and for allowing us to present this very lengthy document to you and for allowing me to do it for you. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Mr. Orth, you got any brief things you'd like to say since I don't, never mind. Yes, go.
Thank all city staff for everything they do. The budget's hard. I understand. Thank the police and fire. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Orth. Mr. Gornick?
Yeah, on this sidewalk repair thing, I was just on our website. It said applications will begin November 2018.
Now that we're finally approved, we'll get her updated and get the correct information on there.
Is that all you got, Mr. Gornick?
That's it.
Okay, Mr. Cheney,
I have nothing.
Mrs. Matthews. Yeah, I caught you off guard. Yeah, you have no notes. Go.
I don't have notes, but I do want to thank the city staff for all their work on the budget. It was a long process and I'm sure they're glad that it's over with, same as us, but thank you guys for all your hard work. And that's it.
Yep. And I want to say the same thing. Thank you to Ms. Spear. I know that budget stuff, you do a lot for the city and I mean, you do get paid, but it's still not easy. Chief, you as well, Nathan, all the city staff, police and fire. Just want to thank everybody for doing their jobs and doing them well. With that, we're adjourned.